It's Warren Sprouse. You're on the Bible Forum. We're here every Sunday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. We look at life through a biblical lens, and we generally solve all the world's problems in 2 hours or less. I want to look at a topic I call 21 Days of Prayer. January 22nd is the 43rd anniversary of the worst U.S. Supreme Court decision in our nation's history. Since that time, nearly 60 million unborn children have been killed in the womb. In January, we celebrate Sanctity of Life Sunday. This year, in 2017, it'll be on January 15th. This is when folks stand along city streets holding signs in quiet testimony to the children who have been sacrificed on the altar of hedonism. Then about 10 days later is the March for Life at the National Mall in Washington, D.C. That's on January 27th. After that, John Stonestreet, co-host of Chuck Colson's Breakpoint, will be speaking at something called the Evangelicals for Life Conference. This is what Christians and some non-Christians do each year to remember the children. In France, a little different. Picture the face of a smiling child, and what thoughts come to mind? Usually innocence, joy, love. What could be more beautiful? The image of a smiling child should give us hope. It should stir us. It should be a reminder that we're all made in the image of God, even and perhaps especially the smile of a child with Down syndrome. A couple of years ago, to mark World Down Syndrome Day, the Italian advocacy organization Core Down released a touching video featuring children with Down syndrome. It's titled Dear Future Mom. It was created to address the fears of a pregnant woman who's just received a prenatal Down syndrome diagnosis. And it does this. Does it ever? It opens with a letter that Core Down received from an expecting mother who discovered her baby has Down syndrome. The mother says, "I'm scared. What kind of life will my child have?" And over the next 2 minutes, children with Down syndrome address us in different languages, smiling, assuring the frightened mom-to-be that her child will be able to read, write, go to school, help dad fix a bike, run to her to hug her, dance with her, and tell her, "I love you." And every word is true. Anyone who has rubbed shoulders with someone who has Down syndrome will tell you about the love, the openness, the zest for life these people bring. Their laughter and joy can be infectious, and as the deeply pro-abortion Huffington Post reports, studies in UK and US have shown that the vast majority of children with Down syndrome and their families live happy, fulfilled lives. Dear Future Mom is a hope-filled message to a culture in which parents more and more obsess over the physical perfection and earning potential of their children. Unfortunately, the story doesn't end there. This positive portrayal of children and Down syndrome was too much for the French authorities, who have banned Dear Future Mom. Why, you ask? Out of kindness? Well, that's what they say. According to Live Action News, earlier this month, France's, I can't pronounce the French word, it's basically their Supreme Court, upheld a lower court ban on the video as inappropriate. How is it inappropriate? Well, because the video's portrayal of people with Down syndrome as happy and smiling was, quote, likely to disturb the conscience of women who had lawfully made different personal choices. Meaning? They killed their babies rather than bring them into the world in that condition. That's France. Over here in Canada, there's a little different response to family and children. According to an Ontario, Canada judge, parents do not have the final say over what is taught to their children. These comments were made while ruling against a Greek Orthodox father who wanted to be notified when his children were going to be taught about things such as homosexuality and abortion in a way that violated his religious beliefs. Now, I'm not yet at the place where I think children need to know this stuff, especially from a thoroughly secular, read pagan, educational system. And I'm sure this father felt the same way. The judge, however, ruled he could not make a black and white ruling about parental authority, effectively saying that there are limits on what a parent can teach or have taught to their children, even when it comes to matters of faith and spirituality. Now, what was particularly disturbing about this case was the judge did rule that not informing the father was a violation of his right to religious freedom, Canada's Charter on Human Rights. However, he also ruled that the school board's refusal to notify him was reasonable in light of their obligations to protect, quote, equality and multiculturalism, values that are also being protected by this same charter. They have equality and multiculturalism values in Canada. Do we? Oh, yeah. The ruling highlights one of the problems with creating new rights all the time. These new rights will almost certainly conflict with other rights. Human beings cannot be expected to anticipate everything when writing laws. And what this means in practice is that judges get to decide what rights to prioritize and which ones to ignore. And if a right can be ignored or overruled, the larger philosophical question is whether it was a real right in the first place. The judge here suggested that the father could take his child out of the school if he didn't like what was being taught. But defenders of religious freedom say that religious parents have as much right to use the public education system as anybody else and shouldn't have to violate their religious beliefs to do so. Now, we've known for decades that the government wants control over our children. In America, it started in the 1930s with the father of American education, modern American education, the psychiatrist, Dr. John Dewey. Did I mention he was a psychiatrist? He openly stated that his goal was to turn every classroom into a psychology laboratory. Now, I digress a little. In Canada, we seem to have found the way to do it. Under their Bill 28, nobody has a mother or a father. The law's official title is an act to amend the Children's Law Reform Act, the Vital Statistics Act, and various other acts respecting parentage and related registrations. This is in Canada. Basically, the law scrubs the word mother and the word father from documents, replaces them with the neutered term parent. Can you see where this is going? The law also raises the number of legal parents to as many as 4 per child. In other words, the government of Ontario will cease to legally recognize the natural origins of any of its citizens. Now, if you live in Ontario, you have no right to be recognized by the state as either a mother or a father to your child, biological or otherwise. How's that? Well, there's more. Likewise, no child there has the right to legally recognize a biological mother or father. Recognizing the relationship is now the sole prerogative of the state. See? Voila. State fiat. The nuclear family is dissolved. Create a right, destroy a basic right. Ontario Progressive Conservative Party leader Patrick Brown is reported to have pressured members to either vote for the bill or stay away from the session. Many who would have been inclined to vote against it were not present at the vote. Therefore, all 79 members who were present voted for it unanimously. It's called the All Families Are Equal Act. Yet a more apt and accurate title might be All Children Are Chattel act. And it's amazing to me that so many simply stayed away. What did Brown have over these people? Now, back over here in the lower 48, efforts are being made to get Clarence Thomas featured in the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. I think it's part of the Smithsonian. John Cornyn introduced a resolution money demanding they include Justice Clarence Thomas in the exhibits. A sitting U.S. Supreme Court justice seems to me would be a pretty special guy. A corresponding resolution was introduced in the House of Representatives by Representatives Earl Carter and Pete Sessions and co-sponsored by a dozen others. Now, although Thomas is conspicuously absent from the museum, law professor Anita Hill, who accused him of sexual harassment during his confirmation hearings in '91, is given pride of place in an exhibit about blacks in the 1990s. The exhibit features testimonies trumpeting her courage and the surge of women activism that ensued, while making only peripheral reference to Thomas. Museum spokesman said there isn't room for everybody, or words to that effect. Do you see how the culture is working? Do you see how the legal system is working? Do you see how we're dividing people, redesignating people, and creating a brave new world? Except this world they're creating is dysfunctional and destructive.